Hi guys. Okay, let's start our today's lesson. Let me show the screen. Okay. First of all, let's revise what we have done on the previous lesson. As you remember, we have EC2 instance within network infrastructure in AWS, and we provisioned elastic load balancer for HTTPS offloading. Now we can use a secure connection to Jenkins, and still we are using elastic file system for storing Jenkins home directory. And today we will create one more Jenkins instance. It will be Jenkins agent node, and if we need to run another Jenkins instance to separate the so-called control plane and data plane. We have first instance, it will be Jenkins controller, and the other instance, it will be Jenkins node, which will offload all the pipelines, builds, all the tasks. And as you remember on previous lessons, we were installing plugins with Golang for our application. And what if we need a different environment for different project, and we would like to use one Jenkins. That is why we are using Jenkins controller and multiple Jenkins nodes agents for a different environment, for example. So let's dive in. As you remember from previous lessons, we have installed Jenkins. Let's log in just to make sure it works. Okay. And as you remember, we have our elastic load balancer DNS name, which should also works. Let's check it. Yes, it works with HTTP also. Okay, that's great. So let's go to our code, and our first task is to create EC2 instance for Jenkins agent node. For this reason, we are going to file compute, and let's create one more instance. We can copy paste in instance 2, instance 1, change name to instance 2. And one moment. And we will change user data to user data 2. We don't need variable inside it. And as we don't need variable, we can use just a file instead of template file. Okay. Okay, this instance 2 will be built. It doesn't depend on EFS. It will be built from Ubuntu, instance type T2 micro. It will be in the same security group as Jenkins instance. Also, we can assign public IP address just for test purposes, and will be inside the same subnet and same public key pair. Okay, that's all right. And now we need to create one more user data instance file for user data for a second instance with Jenkins node. Here, first of all, we need to install Java, because Jenkins will use Java to be able to run on agent node. Then I would suggest to create a user password for username Ubuntu just for our environment. Don't use it in production here. Use private public keys for these purposes. And as we added authentication with password, we need to allow it at the settings here in etc ssh config file. And to apply it, we should restart SSH daemon. Okay. Okay, let's save it and let's apply. And we need the change output here because we would like to know its public IP address to be able to log in. And we need its private IP address. It will be needed for Jenkins configuration. So we ask for output instance to local IP and instance to public IP. Okay, we are going to add one resource. It is EC2 instance, type yes. Okay, instance has been created. You can see its public IP address and private IP address. And now let's go to Jenkins. Plug it in here. To be able to add the Jenkins agent, we need to install plugin SSH build agent. So first of all, we are going to plugins and looking for SSH build agent plugin. Actually, it's called SSH slaves. We can check it here. Okay, as we installed the plugin, let's go to settings, nodes, new node, and let's call it, for example, node 1. It will be permanent agent. So the number of executors, we can left it 2. It means that at the same time, there could be run only 2 builds at the same time. For remote directory, let's choose home Ubuntu Jenkins node directory. And let's use label node 1. This label will be used later in our pipelines. We can choose which node our pipeline will be running on, and we can define it by the labels on agent nodes. And will be used as much as possible and launch via SSH. Here we need to add the SSH host and IP address. We just find it here. I will be use private IP address. And we need to add credentials as well. Let's do it. Username with password and Ubuntu and password. And check non-verifying verification strategy. Okay, now we can see that node 1, it is in sync now, and it can be used. Next, how to force use node 1 and don't use built-in node into the controller node. So we can just use 0 for number of executors. For example, we can change the label also to controller and only build jobs with label. So if we choose 0 controller, I suppose it won't be used because there is no way to match all these expressions at once. And now at the build executor status, we can see that we are using node 1 and here 2 executors. So that's great. And for the next step, I would suggest to create a sample pipeline to get familiar with node agent. For these purposes, first of all, we should install some plugins. because if you click new item, here will be no pipeline project, only freestyle project. So that is why we need to install plugin which is called pipeline. Yes, let's check. Workflow aggregator. And let's install it. Okay, we've installed. Let's reboot. And let's install one more plugin as well. It will be needed a bit later. A GitHub plugin. Okay, and let's create a sample pipeline. Check how agent node is working. Oh, already. Very strange. And here is the very basic pipeline, which you already well know already. Stage test, echo command, the ID, point working directory, and show files. And here is the new item, agent node. It means that we will be run this pipeline on the agent node 1. Let's save it and build. Oh, failed. There should be some syntax error. Let's if you choose agent any, nevertheless it will be used on node 1 only, because it is the only one available here. Okay, it is built successfully. So we can see that we are running in the directory on Jenkins node 1 inside a Jenkins node workspace sample pipeline directory with the ID of Ubuntu 1000.14 directory, and there is no files inside it. Okay, that's great. Sorry. And now we're going to use Jenkins agent node for web application, which we were using at the lesson 5. So for this purpose, let's create new pipeline, pipeline lesson 8, for example. Mhm. And what do we need? And we have our web application directory in GitHub, and we have defined Jenkins file already here. Here it is. And now we need to create a pipeline that will be using our web application directory in GitHub and Jenkins file as a pipeline. So here we go. Code HTTPS. Let's copy paste the path to repository. And it's public. There should be no credentials added. Change main branch for main. And script Jenkins file. Okay, what else we need? I suppose it's enough. It's enough for now. And here we need to edit Jenkins file itself. Let's edit it. First of all, let's change the port number of the application to 8080, as we were using in AWS as Jenkins file, but we can use 8081. And we will be building and testing application I would like to comment deploy stage. We will deploying it in the next lesson. Now we will comment it. Okay. Here we change port to 8080, commented deploy stage, and of course we need to remove tools as we want to install these tools. Let's commit the changes, and we need to change web app go also because we changed the port to 8081. Let's change it also 8081, commit our changes, and of course we change it to hello from lesson 8. So what next? Let's try to build the application and we'll have a look what happens. I suppose there will be a mistake and we should be prepared for it. As we don't install Go on our server agent node. So here it is, Go not found. So as I mentioned before, we use nodes in Jenkins to separate for different projects, for different environment, and it's very useful to install Go on the node itself. So here are two options. We can install Go on our agent node, or we can add installing of Go to user data. So what we can do, we go to user data and add one more line apt install Go, and let's save it, and let's remove this instance and provision once more. Okay, and as we saved this user data, we can apply once again. Okay, it's recreated, and now we have the different instance with different private and public IP address, and we need to go back to Jenkins and change the node IP address. I suppose that it is in sync now. Actually, it should be out of sync. Okay, let's configure. Change IP address. And relaunch engine. Authentication failed. I suppose our script has not been run. Let's try it once again. Okay. IP address is correct. Credentials are the same. It shows that it is in sync. Let's check whether it is working or not. We can use our sample pipeline and just build it. It has built successfully. I suppose there was some mistakes because of Java was installing, Golang was installing. Yes. Oh, connection closed. Okay, let's move forward. And now we have to run pipeline lesson 8 once again. And we suppose that Go should be built because we just didn't install Go on the agent node machine. Oh, and there is success. So what we can see is that we were running on node 1 in home Ubuntu Jenkins node directory. And we have done a git pull for our repository. And here it is building application stage. And we build our application and then perform testing the application. Status code 200 is okay, and it has been built successfully. And the next step, we need to run it on the pull to main branch. So we click GitHub hook, and we need to change webhook configuration going to settings, webhooks, and here we need to edit. Oh, sorry. Need to edit URL. And now we can use it securely with HTTPS. Okay, now we have field SSH verification, enabled SSH verification. Let's update the webhook. And now we can change something here. Let's add exclamation mark. Commit changes to the main branch. And here let's wait for, oh, sorry, I didn't save it. Save it. Okay, and now we can see that build starts automatically with a webhook from GitHub. Okay, and it was built also successfully, so everything is okay. So what is happening now? Let me show you this diagram. And let's go from the developer. For example, we change the number of exclamation mark in our code, perform a git push to main branch to GitHub. Then GitHub initiated a webhook on Jenkins instance. And you remember that we run Jenkins instance on EC2 instance. And inside Jenkins container, there is a Jenkins, and we have our pipeline. But now steps from our pipeline, build and test, are running on another Jenkins machine. It is a Jenkins node. And when the step build starts, it gets a Jenkins file code for pipeline from GitHub. And the Go code also is coming from GitHub. And here we have steps build and steps test. And it's very important to know that we installed Go manually to EC2 instance. Instance 2. For example, if we would have some other project, for example, we need Python, we can run one more Jenkins node with Python and run all the needed pipeline on another Jenkins node. So I suppose that's all for today's lesson. If you have any questions, you are welcome. Okay, Sayed.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so what is the difference between build agents and build executors? We can have multiple executors on the controller node.
I see.
So can't we just run multiple pipelines on the same node?
Yes, Absolutely, yes.
The role build executors and build agents.
So here you can see that we have only two executors, and we can change it. For example, we have a very powerful server with lots of memory and CPU. We can change it to 5 or to 10. So let's change it here, and here we can see that there are 5 executors. It means that at the same time there are 5 executors, and we can build 5 builds at the same time on this agent node. Is it clear?
Yeah. So instead of building agents, we can also use build executor on the controller node, or is just that not a good practice?
I see. It's a best practice to use separated nodes for building. First of all, it is for security reasons. The secondly, it is for separating a control plane and data plane. And lastly, it's for our usage, because we can run, we can install all needed packets, programs, and so on agent node, and use it for specific pipelines. For example, we didn't install a Go on our controller. There is no Go on the controller node, and we installed a Go on created node 1, and we were using it.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your question. And for example, if I change a built-in node to, for example, two executors, so we can see on the dashboard here, we can have built-in node on the controller node. We have run two pipelines at the same time, and we have 5 executors on node 1.
Right. So I guess it depends on the need, maybe how many executors.
Oh, yes. You can Google for calculator how much node executors are needed for your project, and there are some information that it will ask you how much programmers you have on your project, how fast are your pipelines, and so on and so on, and you can predict some amount of executors which are needed on your project.
Right. Thanks. I'll take a look.
Mm-hmm. So, any questions? So I suppose then we can finish our lesson and see you on Monday, the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you too.